Good morning, I hope you're all well. It's a slightly rainy day here in Doncaster. It's a nice day to be in the studio, put it that way. I'm not really sure what to do next on the song. I know that sounds like an odd thing to say, but I'm at a bit of a loss. I think considering how much I got done yesterday, it's quite hard to know where to go next because it requires committing to an idea. It requires like committing to something properly. So from a logical perspective, which is not always the best way to approach something when you're doing something creative, it makes sense for me to actually pick out a structure. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do now. And I've talked about this before. I've talked about like the long verse format and things like that, or whether you go verse, chorus, middle eight. And I think at this point, I'm going to actually dictate it by the instrumentation. So I might start off with just strings and voice, and then I might bring in something else and build to a climax and then sort of make it die down at the end. At the moment, the only idea I have with that is ending on just piano and voice. So not necessarily starting with it, but ending with piano and voice and maybe some strings. Not too dissimilar to what I did with Train of Thought, where right at the end it's just strings, voice, and it's just a nice little sort of epilogue, if you like. But like yesterday, I'm going to listen to some of those sentimental Christmas songs and get a general feeling for what the structure is like. Also, I technically have to point out that I made a mistake yesterday. When I was talking about the lyrics to White Christmas, I said olden and golden, but that's actually the bit from the break strain of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. But what I'd done, for whatever reason, is I'd merged those two songs into each other. Maybe that's quite an interesting idea for the structure. Leave that with me. So I just went out to get some milk and had a bit of a break, but I'm back now and I've decided to use You'll Love This Christmas as a framework for the orchestration for this track. Now, You'll Love This Christmas was a song that I wrote in 2015. I wrote it for two singers who I know, Max Bowker and Dan Morris. We asked loads of different musicians from across Doncaster to come and contribute to it, and we sold the single to raise money for charity, specifically for the Doncaster Food Bank. And it's basically got like a classic Christmas swing vibe to it, but I was listening to the stems of this the other day and I was listening to some of the orchestration that I did on it, and even though it's quite upbeat, I think actually parts of it and the way that I did it will actually work in this context as well. So one of the things that I definitely did was, for the main body of the harmony, I used cello and viola but divided, so it's like 4-part harmony between like a high viola and a low viola and a high cello and a low cello. So you get this kind of very rich, almost melancholy sound from it. I'll play you a little example now. So that's sort of the main under harmony, if you like. It's right in the middle of everything, there's nothing too intrusive, and there's not really much filling in the bottom of it. In fact, if I put the bass in at the same time, you'll hear how that kind of moves along in a totally different way. So what at the top, what we've got is harp, violin and flute, playing out some nice harmony parts, as well as like a little counter melody. Which I think will work in this context as well. Now that's the kind of Hollywood style violin writing that I was talking about, where you have 4 parts, but the first and fourth part are exactly the same, they're just an octave apart, and the other 2 notes in the middle fill out basically the rest of the harmony, whatever those melody notes are not doing. It gives you that kind of Glenn Millery vibe, so like next chorus along it sounds a bit like this. And the idea is that even though that's a totally different melody, that the viola and the cello blend with that quite nicely without kind of interrupting each other. So when I recorded this, I was actually lucky enough to have a clarinet player and a saxophone player. In fact, they were the same person. And we got all this kind of stuff as well. Obviously I don't have access to that this time. I don't know whether it would suit it anyway, for the simple reason that it's like the upbeat jazz sound, isn't it? And I'm not really looking for that. Just wonder if there's anything else I've missed. Ah, okay, there's a little tiny bit of French horn. And other than that, it's just the things that make it sound Christmassy, like glockenspiel and sleigh bells. I'm pretty sure there's just a track on here which is just sleigh bells all the way through. Yeah. And also the glockenspiel's got this kind of sound to it. Where is it? Glockenspiel. In fact, that matches the violin part, doesn't it? So altogether, let's just take one of those choruses. So there you go. On top of that, it'll just be the sort of standard jazz guitar, upright bass, piano, little bit of jazz drumming, just to kind of push it along a little bit, although I might not even need that. So the plan now is to sit and do some orchestration based on that framework. So fans of Sibelius out there will really appreciate this. An external number keypad. Now, I use this because I like to use the mouse to put the notes on and this to change the note values. This cost me like £6 and it has genuinely saved me hours of my life. Particularly seeing as I'm writing in 12/8, so I'm having to dot basically every crotchet. So yes, I recommend Sibelius users, if you haven't already, pick yourself up one of these. It will save you a lot of time. So you join me a couple of hours later, and to be honest with you, I haven't really moved. That sounds ridiculous, but I've just been sort of programming in the strings and things like that, and I've got like a structure. I've made some progress there, but other than that, I've not really got a huge amount to report. But I'm quite pleased with what I've come up with. I've made some good progress. I'm starting to get a bit tired now, and I feel like I'm going to leave this for now and just sort of let it stew overnight. The string arranging was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I'm a bit out of practice with it, but I'm getting there. I'm definitely getting there. I've got a few little ideas planted as well, but I'm going to let them simmer as well, just overnight. But anyway, it's bedtime. I'll see you tomorrow.